Welcome to an IEXIST podcast. Our entire mission can be summed up in one phrase: becoming all that we are. It is our belief that fulfillment doesn't come from changing into things you aren't, but rather from becoming everything that you already are. And ultimately, we're here to press and empower you to lead lives that are full of fulfillment. We've dedicated this specific podcast to the dream. Not to having the dream or even talking about the dream, but to living the dream. The reality is that there's a stark difference between having a dream and manifesting one. Here you'll gain insight and wisdom keys directly from some of the water walkers of our generation, dream practitioners, those who have decided to tread paths where there were none, to step out into only what they could see. Come take a peek into the minds of some who, from within, create our world's most magnificent realities. I'm the creator and host, Brian Farr, and this is the Living the Dream podcast. All right, welcome to the first episode of the IEXIST podcast. I am Brian Farr, and today we have a special guest with us. He's been a friend with me for a while, and so he's already on to how crazy of a person I am and kind of how all over the place I can seem. But obviously anybody that can stay around that for any amount of time must be a good friend material. He's into a lot of things. I'll let him introduce himself in a second. But I won't say too much about him right now. Let's just welcome my friend Adilton Aranha.
Hey guys.
How you doing, man?
Adilton here. Doing good.
Thank you for sitting in with us today. I appreciate it. I understand that your time is valuable. And with a lot of the things you have going on, of course, you could be working on other things or you could be working towards other things. And so I do appreciate you blessing our initial podcast with your presence. Why don't you tell the people a little bit about yourself? You can start wherever you want to start.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. And let's see, born in Brazil, moved to New York when I was 18. So
Brazilian? Right.
Yes, Brazilian and a New Yorker as well.
That's where his heart is.
Yeah, that's right. That's where my heart is. And once you go to New York, it's, I can get pretty carried away talking about it, but that's the place where I feel like I was actually born. But
wow.
But yeah, I moved here to Charlotte like about 6 years ago, and law fashion. I've been doing some modeling for the past 2 years, and love to cook, and I've been investing some time on my cooking show DNA Kitchen lately. Love to sing, and that's kind of like how we met, in church. Absolutely. And doing music together a little bit. And I mean, I just love being creative, I guess, and just try my best to be busy doing whatever I can get my hands into, whether it's fashion or music or food or styling or,
So you're a creative in general.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm always thinking of what else I can do. Like, it's like, again, like at 1 minute I can be like focused on fashion, and then all of a sudden I'm like, all right, like I need to try to create a new dish or, try to cook something. And then all of a sudden I'm like thinking about music or, or ideas for, I don't know, a photo shoot or, so it's like my mind keeps on jumping from one thing to the next. So I don't know.
So maybe that's the common ground there. I was talking about how I was all over the place, but obviously I'm not the only one. So.
No, I'm always all over the place, I feel like, as well. Like my mind is always going, like, and it can be hard because, it's like you're about to explode all the time, with ideas and just, I don't know, trying to put things into motion. And
I guess maybe if you can understand that, it's easier to be around, right?
Yeah.
So to wrap that or to sum that all up for you guys, so far we're talking about a singer, a model, which, A1 model. I'll say that just in case Versace is listening, and whatever cologne brand, whatever.
Here I am, Versace.
Clothing brand, whatever, top class modeling agency would like to endeavor on seeking someone out that'll give you a timeless look and just actually very skilled at what he does. Actually,
Thank you.
tell us kind of how you, obviously you said you had a love for fashion, but tell us a little bit of how you kind of gotten into the whole modeling thing, because it's not something that you've always done. Of course, I think with talking to you before, people did notice you, and you became kind of known in whatever circles you were in for being tasteful concerning style. But as far as like, where did the modeling piece come in at?
Right. So I remember being a teenager and trying out for modeling. I was 14 at the time, but I didn't know any better back then. I just went by an ad on the newspaper just to, they were needing models for a certain commercial. And of course, it was kind of some sort of a scam, to be honest, because when I got there, they
wow.
wanted us to pay some money,
Gotcha.
to get our pictures done. And so at the time, my mom was just like, let's just forget about it, And so I always had that in the back of my mind, but I never went after it after that.
Gotcha.
So forward that like to pretty much like 20 years later,
Oh wow.
like literally, I'm 39 now and I'll be 40 this year. So I started this whole modeling journey at 37.
Wow.
So, of course, it also happened after my divorce, and I was married for 14 years at the time, but after my divorce, and I just really started thinking about what did I want to do in life. Like, I needed to focus on my dreams because I had put them to the side for so long.
Wow.
And but everything just happened just naturally, to be honest. Like, working at the restaurant for so long, like I knew a lot of people, but right after my separation, somebody walked in the restaurant and he saw me, and he was a photographer, and he which we became friends right after that. But he offered to do a photo shoot with me. He thought I would do well, and I jumped on it. So I went, and when he sent me the pictures back, I actually didn't believe like it was me.
Wow.
in the picture. So I was pretty surprised, and I just
So a person's good when they shock themselves at something. It's probably an indication that you are gifted at it. And by the way, while I'm interrupting him to say this, I'll make sure we get your information out to everybody at the end of it so that they can actually see that although you're what people may consider a late model, that has no effect on his actual ability to model, doesn't look a day over 26. I'll say that. So, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so he sent me those pictures, and I was really surprised, and I was like, wow, like maybe I can still do this. And all I remember was the day of the photo shoot, just being like very free and really feeling like I was a kid again. Like,
Wow.
it really felt right,
Wow.
to do that. And that really, it just brought so much joy to me. And I was not, it wasn't a paid thing. I didn't pay him. He didn't pay me. He just wanted to, do the photo shoot with me. And so from then on, I started going to, castings, and I got to work with a bunch of other photographers here in Charlotte, and started just getting to know more people in the business. And fast forward now to what, 2.5 years that I've been doing it, and I love it. But within that too, like, it has really helped me to not only model but to style as well. the
Okay.
photo shoots that I've been in, when I'm out there with, a photographer, it's me doing the styling part and the hair part and making sure everything is, you know, presentable enough in front of the camera so that the product comes out right.
Absolutely.
And seeing the results of those ideas has been really great, and that
Absolutely.
also has served me on doing my DNA kitchen stuff, doing the show, which that was really important to start this past year in 2019.
Right. So I stated the the model and the singer, which you've delved into a little bit, releasing a single. But this is the third thing on the list so far, which is the
Yeah,
Real Renaissance Man, which I'm really familiar with. But the cooking, yeah,
yeah.
which is also a great cook. I'll just throw that in there before he kind of gets
Thanks.
into that too.
Yeah, it's just yeah, and for me again, the whole cooking thing has been when I was 26, actually, I went through a health issue that made me just be more conscious about what I was eating, and
Hmm.
so it was then that I started eating gluten free and being more aware of organic foods and things like that. So the cooking show is pretty much like a culmination of those years that
Hmm.
just trying different recipes at home and making over recipes that I already knew, and just so I had so in 2018 I had worked on a music video, a single with a friend of mine, and I put that single out. And so the guy that I had worked with on the music video, he's now a friend of mine, Ethan. And I approached him at the beginning of 2019, and I was just like, hey, I have this idea of a cooking show and I want to do it. And so we started, for about 3 months we were preparing for it. So I had to put my recipes together, and and the idea for the show and how I wanted to look. And I was able to get a photographer, another friend of mine, Danny, as well, to get on the project with me so we could photograph the food and do some behind the scenes stuff. And it was a lot of work, like a lot of
I'm
work,
sure.
but it has certainly paid off. I mean, Amazon Prime has, took interest in it, so they put up on their channel, and that's pretty cool. I'm super excited
Wow.
about that. But we are now in the middle of editing season 2 with a bunch of new recipes and gluten free and healthier. So
And that healthy turn, of course, has to do more so with your actual health journey. Correct? It's that in which, I've kind of seen before and after pictures. I really want you guys to go check out his social media and things like that to kind of see in person what I'm actually describing to you. I've actually seen before and after pictures of, some of his journey, and it's pretty unbelievable kind of where he's come from in order to get where he is. And so because his health was affected so much, you had to take a major turn at one point concerning your food and how you were treating your own body. And so a lot of that is in DNA Kitchen. It's kind
exactly.
of formulated the brand for you concerning the type of food you wanted to serve.
Yeah. So before having the health issue, I got to 200 pounds, which for my height, because I'm 5'9", and
Wow.
it was too much, for me to carry. But I didn't realize it until I really got sick and had issues with acid reflux, but they were severe issues. And who, people that might not have it, don't realize how acid reflux can actually be detrimental to your entire health if you don't take care of it, at an early stage.
Absolutely.
It can even lead to cancer if you're not careful. So,
Wow.
so yeah, so that scared me a lot. And I had to make a choice. And into making that choice, I was like, it just makes sense to take care of your body. Like,
Absolutely.
you only get one. And, growing up in church, as you hear all the time about, your body is a temple, a temple of God, and you have to take care of it. Like, especially if you
For
want to
sure.
get more mileage out of it.
Absolutely.
And or even like while you're here, you have a better quality of life. So,
Absolutely.
and it's not about just losing weight, but feeling good about yourself and knowing that the foods that you're putting in your body are clean and they're healthier for you, and you can still enjoy some desserts, but again, you can just make them healthier, that you can enjoy without the guilt. So
Absolutely.
so for me, DNA Kitchen is the way I eat. It is, how my kids, eat as well. I have 3 kids, and
Wow.
they and thankfully they like my food,
For
which is
sure.
always a plus.
Always
But
a good thing.
and for them, they don't find boring. They don't find burdensome to eat healthier foods, because the whole point as well is trying to make the food taste as if there was no changes made to it,
For sure.
but still carrying a healthy profile and being gluten free. And so yeah, so you can again get some more information on dnakitchen.com. But jumping to that was another thing for me on the creative side, because having to put the recipes together and getting in the kitchen and actually trying new ones and coming up with new recipes, and trying them over and over again to make sure everything comes out right, and
For sure.
coming up with the style of of the show, and how I wanted the look of it to be, and and the music behind it, like
Absolutely.
everything. There's a thought, there's a why. It's nothing just thrown together for the sake of throwing it together. There's everything is really thought out before making it to the final product. So it's been great to do that, and I'm very thankful to be able to start all these things.
Absolutely.
It's never too late, but at the same time, it's interesting because I do feel at times that I'm back to my early 20s, just because I don't know, the drive is there, the passion is there to just pursue what I'm supposed to do,
Writer, producer, artist, coach, and inspirational motivational speaker, Brian Farr takes us on a deep, retrospective, and introspective journey ranging from his childhood until life today that invokes the question, will I live a life of significance or one of safety? Filled with experience-gained wisdom and revelatory insights, A New Home dares its readers to ask themselves the hard questions concerning their need to fit in. How far will you go? And will all the efforts you've made be worth it in the end? This perspective-shifting discourse is a must-read, and through its hard-hitting yet relatable, tear-jerking, and even at points comical nature, may prove to be more of a life-changing event than just a good Sunday morning read. Get your physical copy or digital copy today at Amazon.com.
So we're talking about ultimately like probably purpose there, right? And so
Exactly.
I think what I would like to touch on is, since you're already kind of going in that direction, you said earlier that you had a moment in which, is very hard for a lot of people. And It was actually divorce. And that became somewhat of a turning point that you were able to reevaluate certain things about your life and kind of decide what your future was going to look like.
Exactly.
So maybe let's talk about what had to happen, maybe so internally, and we'll get to back to a lot of the things you were saying a second ago also, where you were saying, it's never too late. I definitely want to hit on all those points, but I specifically want to talk about where you were internally at a lot of these spaces, to kind of get to where you are today. I kind of want to frame our conversation at this point, kind of going forward, about maybe some of the hindrances that you may have felt like were kind of there. And I'm saying really starting on the inside, not necessarily making it an outward thing about, the kind of the effects of what was happening to you on the inside, but like internally, what were maybe some of the blockages that were there before that you had to confront or that you had to realize were there in order to kind of move into the mode that you are in now, in which you are being highly creative. You're being probably a lot more, I'm assuming, confident with your creativity than you were before.
Yeah. Well, I think, there's so many things, but definitely having a low self-esteem played a huge part into everything, like even getting married at such an early age, which I think you can work with like my parents got married, at the same age I did, and they're still together, they've been married for 40 years now. And but for me, it was almost like, I don't know, I needed to validate myself by getting married, I guess. And,
Wow.
and again, being in a church setting back in the day, I think, which is great. I mean, family is amazing, but I think the church puts so much emphasis on getting married at young, or getting married for the sake of having a family, that it kind of like puts aside people that are single, and it makes them kind of feel bad
Gotcha.
in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that's the church's purpose, but it gets to that point where people
Absolutely.
are not, when you go to church, like people are usually not happy if they're not married.
Absolutely.
Because they feel like they're left out. So anyhow, I mean, I don't want to blame, of course, that on the church, but I'm just saying, when you're in that environment, you just kind of make choices based on
Absolutely.
what you know.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, because I got married, I was 22, and again, it was too young. I mean, when you think about a 22-year-old today, like I have some friends that are in their early 20s now, and I'm like, there's no way that person could be married now, not because of maturity, but there's so much out there for you to do sometimes that probably would be a hindrance to that person. You know what I'm saying?
sure.
Like, so I felt like I needed to maybe validate myself on something, and I got married too young, and I started, and when you get married, and it's a natural thing, like you're living for that person, and if you start growing and the other person doesn't, or doesn't
Wow.
allow you to grow, that becomes such a hindrance, for lack of a better word, I guess.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Like,
Yeah.
that person, because you either grow together or you're going to grow apart. Like, there's
Absolutely.
there's no way around it.
Absolutely.
So as I got, started getting older and whatever, like as we, had more years into our marriage or whatever, like I started having even more interest in different things. I just, whether it was cooking or fashion or whatever, like it was always there. It just kept on growing, but I just couldn't do it because, my ex was not supportive, of what
The
I was
state of
doing.
the relationship. Yeah.
So I couldn't pursue my dreams, and I couldn't do it. And after the divorce, I finally felt like, I was free again to do what I wanted to do,
Wow.
you know, and it just, of course, the first 6 months after divorce, it was really tough to try to figure yourself out because, you know, now it's a new thing again, you know, it's
Yeah.
a new way of life. But after that, I just felt like things were getting into place and I was like, I need to. And that was one of the things that I felt like God was talking to me a lot right after the separation was the need that I had to make new memories, you know.
Wow.
I had to replace those old memories with new ones, you know. But as you know, again, time is going to be like one of the best things that happens to, I think, anyone, because you know, as you keep going and keep getting up each day, like you start realizing things. And and again, this opportunity came out for me to model, and then that same guy that, you know, I did my photo shoot with, like, he was also the first person that got interested in working with music with me. And so, you know, one thing just led to another. And I feel like, you know, again, like at times I feel like, oh, I'm starting late, but at the same time, it's never late, you
For
know,
sure.
to pursue your dreams and to do the things that you were called to do. And it just feels so natural, you know what I'm saying? Like there's no, like, I don't know, it's not forceful, or I feel like I don't know, I'm the happiest when I'm doing, you know,
What you love.
what I love, you know, whether
yeah.
it's, again, modeling or music or doing the cooking show or styling or, you know, like whatever, you know, it's where I feel the most, like, you know, fulfilled.
Absolutely. So it's almost become this thing to where, to be direct, but, you know, this is no shot at, or, you know, this is not to blame at the end of the day, but more so to say you almost felt locked into a place that you couldn't be absolutely creative, absolutely be yourself, as long as you were in a relationship that really didn't allow for it.
Exactly.
And it seems like what you're saying to me is that that's where a lot of the caged feeling was coming from for you specifically. You know, maybe when you alluded back to the idea that there were certain probably religious principle around the reason why you were kind of even wanting to get married in the first place. It was probably just the culture of the environment you were in, which I think is a real thing to say because, you know, ultimately, you know, this will be a place of truth. And so,
Right.
you know, I don't want to sugarcoat anything or avoid any real conversation around that either. I think that from my personal experience too, a lot of what you're saying I can relate to in terms of the idea that, you know, sometimes in these places where, you know, the main intention should be that you're getting a revelation of or an opportunity to have a better spiritual life, to kind of get in relationship with your maker, with your creator, it gets into a lot of dogma that surrounds the idea of a relationship with God. I was actually listening to somebody I love to listen to earlier today, and he was talking about how he continually ran into a brick wall when it came down to fitting into that environment, specifically because of how he was taught he had to relate to God in those places. And so it was such a rigid, dogmatic version of, you know, spirituality that it often left him feeling guilty and feeling like he was in the wrong, essentially, if he did not do or fit into that mold. And so I'm sure what you're saying about the entire marriage thing was one of the things, you know, it felt like this wasn't right for me to be on the outside of this. And if I am not, you know, getting married and seeking out a wife and starting to have a family at this point in time, then, you know, somehow you might feel guilty about it at some point or something like that. And so, or just left out, or, you know, just a lot of the ideology surrounding it. Even when you're talking about low self-esteem, I found that when places get to the point of being highly religious, there's hardly any esteem in those buildings in general. So, that's from the person at the pulpit to the back door, right?
Right, yeah.
There's a lot of self-esteem issues because everybody's just trying to fit in around each other in the first place. So it really doesn't have anything to do with self-improvement, self-focus, self-confidence. It has to do with everybody else around you. And so with that being said, I kind of want to broaden it to the idea that I kind of see spread throughout your story to freedom, or to a higher or freer self, which is the idea of dependency, right? I married myself, and I actually got married fairly young. I think around the same age. I think I was 22.
22,
right?
yeah.
So one thing I kind of know about relationships of any kind, if you're going to make them work over time, and I think this is why people allude to the idea that you should be in relationship, no matter what type of relationship it is, friendship or anything, with like-minded people, because there has to be some level of either, if there's no like-mindedness, or if there's different mindsets in certain areas, there has to be a level of compromise in order for the relationship to work.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
And so it's almost like you may let's just go to favorite foods or something like that, eating for the night. If two people eating, right, and your favorite fruit is, an apple, and their favorite fruit is an orange, and, that's what's going to be a part of your dinner for that night. And, you're only going to choose one at the end of the day because of whatever, budget issues or whatever.
Right.
Somebody's going to have to compromise for the time in order to maintain that relationship in a way to where you're both getting along, and also be able to eat at the same time. And so there's a level of compromise that kind of goes in a lot of times within a lot of different relationships. And so when you are kind of in a relationship in which, again, and this is, I'm just talking principally, so this could be a friendship, this could be a relationship with your business, this could be a relationship with, again, a spouse, or whatever the situation is. When you're in a relationship in which you're having to bend a whole lot in order to maintain the relationship, there is that feeling of being trapped, and there is a feeling of, and I've seen couples and friends, eventually get jealous. One is jealous of the other, because when you want to grow, or if self-esteem is in one and self-esteem is not in the other, when you, like you said, either you grow together or you grow apart, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And so if one grows in self-esteem and the other doesn't, and they want to kind of remain as the low self-esteem couple that was there before, now you have a situation in which one could possibly get jealous of the other, and that's just one specific area. But these are things that literally happen all the time. And so, the perfect situation is, I always think that in relationships, period, there has to be a certain level of independence that's there, that will allow each individual, and this is just my
absolutely
philosophical look at it, there has to be a certain amount of independence within each individual to not rely on the other so much to where it becomes a codependent relationship, right?
Yeah.
Because what happens in those scenarios is, in that scenario is, and I think I would like to phrase it this way: anything that you fully rely on, whatever that is, again, if that's a business relationship, so if it's the boss, if it's the government, if it's another person, and like I said, a friendship, a spouse, or whatever the situation is, whatever you rely on to the point of codependency, which means they become your bottom line, when you rely on something else too heavily, they ultimately determine how far you can go, right? So it's almost like this. If I take a job, and let's say I want to be a millionaire when I get to a certain age. If I take a job, let's say I want to be by 30, a millionaire. Let's say I take the job at 20. Now, if I put all of my eggs in that basket and say that I'm going to become a millionaire, but I'm completely dependent upon that job to get me there, what's going to happen is over time, if I don't get to that million by the age of 30, I'm going to probably resent that company, right?
Yes,
Or
'cause
that
you're
job.
putting all your expectations on it. Yeah.
You're putting all of your expectations on that actual company in order to get you there. And so, I would consider that a case of codependency. I feel like in order for a relationship to kind of maintain its health, you don't want to go all the way to complete full independence necessarily, because then you don't, there's no nothing that's connecting you, right?
Right.
But I think the term would be interdependence, right? In which there's enough independence to that you become your own bottom line, but that also you're there to aid each other in whichever way you have to go, right? And so again, this is not just about spouses. This is about life.
Yeah, everything in life. Yeah.
Yeah, because what's going to happen is down the line, now, when you're counting on, the government to make you secure in your retirement, and that was your whole bottom line. You were completely dependent upon them, and then something happens to the economy, and something goes wrong with Social Security or whatever.
Right.
Now because I was so dependent upon, they were my bottom line as far as whatever, me feeling secure in my last years.
Right.
Say it that way, it sounds bad, but
Yeah.
like now I'm angry with the government because I was too codependent, right? I didn't make myself the bottom line. And I almost feel like being in a lot of religious environments, it can honestly contribute to that too, because there's this idea, and don't get me wrong, I don't think the terminology is wrong. I think the interpretation is wrong a lot of times of what's presented to us in certain places once they've gotten dogmatic and away from probably original intent.
Right.
But, where there's these ideas that, you're going to be saved from situations, or that you're going to, wrongly interpreted. You think that probably means that I should be so reliant on somebody else, or there's this idea, and I'm gonna tell you what actually lends itself to people not having any esteem. It's almost like when there's no teaching or there's no principle being presented to people that says that, listen, ultimately you're empowered to make happen what you want to see in life, right?
Right.
Rather, what's thrown at them is, I know you want to be there, and this has become culture, especially like in Black church and in a lot of the places that I've grown up in. It's almost like, hey guy, you're gonna be great in life. You're gonna be, whatever the quote is, you're gonna be blessed. You're gonna be, whatever. Somebody's gonna come along and pick you out of the crowd, and they're gonna make you
Right.
great. You know what I'm saying? And what we don't subconsciously realize is happening to us is that we are putting so much faith in somebody else that there's none in ourselves over time.
Exactly.
You get what I'm saying?
Like,
And so now
yeah.
you have this reliance on other people.
No, yeah, but it's totally that. Like you feel like there's always that. We're waiting on God, and again, don't get me wrong. Like, I feel like there are times that God will definitely have you wait on Him. Like, there's certain things that only He can do. That there's certain miracles that it can. But at the same time, I think we have to keep on moving. We have to do our part into whatever. Like, again, just going back to the DNA kitchen, like, I could never just like sit at home and just wait for it to happen
For sure.
without me actually putting the work into it.
Absolutely.
Like I couldn't just wait for someone to be like, hey, I want to do a cooking show with you. No, I literally had to. I mean, I had the idea, of course, I also had the desire and the want to make it happen. So, for me, one of the main lessons that has taught me is, it's going to happen, and the doors are going to open, and things are going to you know, open up for you, but you're going to have to take that step. You're going to have to put yourself out there and throw yourself out there into whatever. Like, you know, let's say if you want to be a doctor, like you can't just be a doctor by staying home. Like you're going to have to go to school for it, you know. If you want to be a hairdresser, like, yes, you might have already the you know, the gift for it to do it. And, you know, because I do believe that, you know, but there's a couple of steps in order for you to make it to the front lines. You're going to have to get your degree so that you're licensed to do so, you know. So you have to take that step. I think by doing that, you know, I heard someone say that the other day, like, God will meet you halfway. You know what I mean? Like you kind of just, you know, you can't just wait for things to just fall off the sky. Like you're going to have to put your work into it.
I kid you not, not to interrupt you, but somebody said we were like in some environment, some setting one day, and somebody like decided to actually like pray for me, like, you know, kind of in a public way, right? And I remember them opening their eyes after kind of talking to me and saying, you know, all I felt, Brian, was in my prayer was that, you know, I felt like God was saying to the Lord was saying to me that he's made his move. It's time for you to make yours. I remember that person saying that to me in terms of, and I think they gave me even a chess reference, right? Like, I've made my move. Now it's time for you to make yours type of situation. And first of all, let me say this. Hope I don't lose what I'm about to say. But I want to say that I hope what also people didn't skip over earlier, something that you said, hopefully there's a profound respect that comes out of, you know, some of the things that you're saying, even about your personal entrepreneurial pursuit, right? That you said that part of your work is not just to get up and take pictures, but you're doing the styling element of it. You are not even necessarily being guided all the time in your photo shoots, but you're thinking of creative ideas in order to make the actual photos creative. Again, once you guys see some of these photos, you're going to know how good he is. But I think sometimes people don't know the work that goes behind to just to get a good photo.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like the places you have to go and the positions you kind of have to put yourself in. I remember you telling me that some of the photos you were taking in was actually in an abandoned school. And it was actually, the funny thing is it was a school that was right across the street from where I grew up.
Exactly.
And I remember when it burned down years ago. It wasn't too long ago. I don't even want to throw a number on it because I don't remember. But to kind of have to sneak in that building and then try to figure out good locations where it would be. Not only that, you were talking about for DNA Kitchen. I remember having specific conversations with you where you were saying, you know, it's just, when you all see this show, it's going to look like it was 10 people that were involved with this show at least, but it was maybe up to 3 of you at the most. And so, you know, for the photos, for the shooting, for a lot of the things that you did concerning, again, making sure you were styled, making sure that the environment was right. I remember you even having certain conversations with me about making sure the things that you bought for the set were actually the right colors, that everything kind of, and then that the things that you bought for the set were actually matching your clothing and all of these things.
Right.
You know, he would probably explain it more. He could explain it better than I am explaining it to you. But, you know, just really meticulous guy, which is probably another reason we've remained friends, because I am a fan of excellency in everything. And so you're going to get nothing short of that when you see some of the products that he's with. But here's what I wanted to say, and I'll get back to it real quick, that I think the problem is, or I think what people have to understand is that it's almost, I think you referenced it as saying, you know, God will do his part and we have to do our part. Even saying the term God will do his part, or you said it's gonna happen. That's what you said. You said it's gonna happen, but you know, we have to put in the work.
Exactly.
I think that the way we ought to think about it though, and this is the way that I I look at it, is that it already has happened. That's the
Right.
problem.
Yeah.
The problem is that we don't look at it as it's already happened, right? And so we just have to agree with what it is. And so, like, I'm a fan of Steve Harvey, and I'm a big dream talkers, and a lot of people that I listen to or that I have taken notes from over the years. But the idea is that if it was placed in your imagination, if you don't even know where this came from and things like that, this is not a preview of things possible to come, but these are a preview of things to come, right?
Exactly,
You have to assume that it's already there, and that's going to give you enough faith to actually step out there and do the things. You have to treat it like it's already been done the entire time, right? And so that's actually what's going to force your feet to start moving towards it. Because this is not a matter of this might happen. I listened to Dick Gregory also, which is he's a cool character, but good guy. If you can really get down and listen to a lot of the things he said over the years, not always endorsing everything, from everyone. So don't, take me as saying that I know how to take the good parts or whatever, or think for myself enough to have my own opinion after I listen to other people. The same way I hope you do, even with listening to us. At the end of the day,
you got to have your own opinion. Absolutely.
Yeah. You have to take what's fitting for your life. Hopefully a lot of it is, but one thing he was saying is that when you have a hope attitude all the time, he was really against that. I think I saw something even recently being put up from his family members where he was just talking about, at the end of the day, like, he's never seen somebody really rich and powerful or whatever you deem to be, this really powerful person. You don't hear them talking about, I hope this happens. I just hope, as if they're like unsure. There has to be a surety about the things that you're pursuing. There has to be a part of you that's fighting for what you already know is there. You know what I mean? And so I think that just becomes a big element of what kind of faith actually becomes in the life of a person who is actually pursuing, that is actually putting feet to whatever vision they have, or putting steps to their actual goals.
Yeah, exactly. And really, like, again, having the vision, like, see it as it's already done, and just keep going at it. Like, you can't, you gotta be relentless when it comes to your dreams and to your passions. That you have to go for it.
You gotta know it's there.
Yeah, and I remember you saying something to me a while ago. Like, I think what you said was like, everything is gonna back you up when you decide to do something, and it really is. Like, once you put something in your mind, like things just have a way to work themselves out, and you just gotta go for it.
Absolutely. I think I said it like this: the universe backs your decisions.
Exactly. That's exactly what you said. Yeah.
And so it's almost like this idea that, like, and it's the reason why sometimes I'm so cautious about what I'm doing, because I know once I get into a good flow of it, it's gonna, like, everything's gonna, like, come forceful behind me. And so I have to make sure, one of my personal battles is to make sure with any endeavor that I'm doing, I have to be 100% myself. It's got to have a certain amount of flow to it. It has a certain amount of ease to it. And what I mean by ease is not that there won't be a fight in it, but I make sure that the fight stays on the outside of me, right? I don't want to be, fighting to make something happen, but then not being able to sleep good at night about the things that I'm fighting for. You know what I mean? And so it has to be something morally that I can deal with, and all those fronts. I just make sure that the fight stays on the outside, which means that I'll fight for my dreams, right? But at the end of the day, it has to be something I'm at peace about. And so I'm really careful not to move too far into something that doesn't feel right with me internally, that doesn't feel naturally authentic, or that doesn't feel like it's morally, or you know what I'm saying? I can't move into it too far, because I know if I get into it too far, here's everything, the universe to back my decision.
Yeah.
And now I have to live with what I've created. And sometimes that can be a monster. So yeah, I absolutely do believe that it's going to back your decision. Like, I think that's the way this thing kind of goes. And so, yeah.
Yeah. So again, like with whatever, I guess you plan on doing, like, you have to, I mean, once you decide, I mean, things are just going to fall into place. And
For sure.
And when I, with DNA Kitchen too, it was like that. Like, once I started, I mean, like I said, it was not easy.
Absolutely.
A lot of work.
So unfortunately, I'm going to have to wrap us here. First of all, I want to say that I enjoyed the conversation thoroughly between Adilton and myself. I appreciate you for coming through again. And I want to publicly say I appreciate anyone that's able to be vulnerable enough to open themselves up enough that we can learn from past mistakes and even successes. But vulnerability is big in order for us to even be able to have insight. And so I appreciate you for that. If you want to get in touch with Adilton or to connect with him via social media, you can do that by searching him. Just look him up as Adilton Aranha. That's Adilton. Aranha is Aranha. Adilton Aranha. If you want to connect to everything he's doing, you can find his music, his portfolio. You can do that at adilton.com. Again, that's ADILTON.com. Before I end this, I wanted to close by giving thoughts on just two major things that stuck out to me throughout this podcast. So many points, to be honest with you, that I could touch on. But two of them I definitely wanted to close with. One of those thoughts is concerning what we were talking about dependency earlier. So I hope that what was taken from everything that was being said in that moment is that the ultimate goal should be enough personal responsibility to make ourselves the bottom line, or I'll say it this way, enough personal responsibility to be the ones we bank on in order to see our dreams happen. Hopefully what you got out of that portion is that you have enough power to make your dreams happen, and that ultimately you want to be responsible for making it happen. And if there's a situation, a circumstance that you are not able to live out your dream, hopefully you'll make the proper adjustments to place all of the responsibility on yourself so that you do not blame others for a lack of fulfillment when it comes down to reaching your goals and dreams. And that actually leads into the second thing that I wanted to bring out, which was that I honestly feel that we should highly prioritize purpose when it comes down to how we live out our lives. Any relationships that are not serving the actual intention behind you even being born in this world, any circumstance that does not serve the actual reason that you were birthed into this world, your purpose, your call, the prioritization again of your purpose is so important. And I used to say it like this to our spiritual people out there. I used to say that God prioritizes purpose, that I don't know that God would care how much you love the situation. And I hate to say this, but even another person, if it got in the way of the very reason that you were intended to be birthed in this world, that anything that is in your life should come secondary to the purpose, that it should aid ultimately the reason why you have been birthed in this world. And that's not to say that you should always look at relationships in such a business way that you're just looking for somebody to, again, we're not talking about dependency, like, oh, I need you to help me get something done. But I'm talking more against the idea that things should hinder the reason you've been born into this world. And so when things get in the way of purpose, I think it's a sure indication of something kind of being off, that your life doesn't flow as naturally as it should. And really it stops everything great, every blessing, every product of favor or right living that could come into your life when there are blockages that stop you from being who you were meant to be. And so based around your authenticity, based around who you are and what you've been called, intended to be in this world, I think everything else should fall in line with that. And I'm not saying this is something that's easy, or that so easily when you're born. I'm saying as you're maturing, as you're coming into the knowledge, as your desires are being birthed, the self-awareness that's going to come over the years as you mature, it's important to me that you begin to even intentionally align yourself and align the things around you with what it is you've been born, purpose, called to do. Yeah. I appreciate you for listening. Keep yourselves well. I pray that your way be made prosperous. And until next time.